So apparently, well, I'm really glad we got the answer today, Troy. I'm really glad, we figured this out together. So don't send 159,000 texts.
Yeah, don't send 159,000 texts, for God's sake.
Okay, well.
And don't threaten to kill the person, even if your mum's ill or whatever.
And, okay, so next, why don't you tell me? I actually didn't even watch it. So why don't you tell me about the next segment?
So this has been being talked about a little in a few videos online recently. Basically, there's this issue about if a guy gets married, right? Should he cry at the wedding, or is it a good thing or a bad thing if he cries at the wedding? And some women are saying, yes, he should because it's kind of cute, and others are saying no, he shouldn't because it's weak and it gives me the ick. So it's like which is right, which is wrong, and then it's like there's this contradiction of females who are like sort of like, oh yeah, he's on the one hand I want him to be like strong and like stoic, and so he'd never do that, but on the other hand, why isn't he? I'm insulted at the same time.
Yeah. Well, let's play the video. Blessing. This one, right?
Yeah,
okay.
This is kind of a reaction to a reaction, but anyway.
I think a red flag that's not talked about enough is men who boo-hoo cry at their weddings.
Just when I thought the internet couldn't get any more toxic, there's more.
Why are you crying that hard? Like, all that tells me is that you did some shady stuff during the whole relationship, and you literally cannot believe that this girl is still choosing to marry you.
So men can only cry tears of guilt at their wedding now instead of tears of joy? Is that for real? And if a man is actually crying at her wedding, that means that he's done something sketchy or inappropriate, or he's probably cheating on her, or whatever she considers shiesty shit. Like, I'm just thinking about it. Imagine being her man at the altar and you're standing there like, please don't cry too much. Please don't cry too much. She's going to get the ick if I cry too much. Like, I don't want to boohoo cry. I just need to cry a little bit. Because if I over cry, she's going to think it's a red flag. Like, what? Men literally can't win. They're told all the time to show emotion, and then when they show emotion, women come on the internet and say ridiculous things.
What can we do?
Like it's a red flag, and he feels guilty and not joy at his own wedding. And just imagine for a moment that men made videos saying that women can't cry at their proposals or at their weddings because they're cheating or they're doing something inappropriate. This whole video is giving, I don't know how to choose men properly, and men have never cried over me, so I'm jealous about the men that cry over their women because I've never experienced it myself. This video is giving unhealed trauma and projection, and somebody that doesn't know how to have any type of emotional intelligence and doesn't even want partners that have emotional intelligence. But not only that, it also makes me feel like I need the dude that writes down the icks when he sees videos like this, and this needs to be added. But also, additionally, it's making me feel like I need to stay off the internet from now on because this is just outlandish. Okay.
What this lady has done is she has taken the way that she perceives her emotions and the reasons why she cries, like her response to crying. There's a cause and effect. The cause may be she's guilty. The effect is she's crying, right? Let's just say that, so to speak. So she's projecting that on him. When in reality, the man is just crying because he's so happy that he found a woman out here that's not a thought. That's why he's happy. There's so many 304s in the open. We don't know where the good women are, bro. So when you finally find one, you cry. It's been so long. I cannot believe I found one. All these hoes out here, all these 304s, I actually found a good one. A diamond in the rough. That's what it is. It's tears of joy, bro. It's tears that if you didn't find her, you probably never got married, because all the ones that advertise themselves is 304s. Now, there's a lot of good women out here, but they hidden. They're not in the open. You don't know where they are. That's tears of joy, man.
So what's your take?
Well, firstly, I think the original video, I think that's a great example of what you might call toxic femininity, right? Because basically, like, she's like, even something that is on the surface of it, kind of quite you could consider quite nice in a way. You know, he's so emotional because he's this is this special day, blah blah blah. I'm not saying I think this necessarily, but you might interpret it that way. She's just immediately finding an ulterior motive. Oh, he must have cheated, and again, it's this blaming men for everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he must have cheated. He must have done something bad. He's done some shisty stuff, whatever she said. You know, and it's like sort of, and it like. One of those commentators said it's almost like projection, like she's seeing like guilt when it shouldn't exist. So that's the first thing. Secondly, should men actually cry at their wedding? I personally think men shouldn't cry certainly in public. I think you should like have that, you know, you should have that stoic kind of like you should hold it back a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Because
even if you're nice about it, like as a girl, you still feel a certain way about it.
Do you think so? So there's another video where this woman talks about getting the ick from it or not getting the ick, but on the surface of it though, right? You can see the argument. It should be like from the guy's point of view, it's like, oh, but I love you so much. I found the love of my life. Blah blah blah. I'm feeling this emotion, so I'm crying a little bit. So, but a woman theoretically should interpret that as being, oh, this is great because he really loves me so much. But do you think genuinely a lot of women are going to be like, you know?
Well, unless you're in toxic relationships constantly, I don't think people would interpret it as you did something wrong. But I think generally when we see men cry, we're not attracted to it.
Yeah.
Not saying one cry will make us
it's not gonna write off the whole thing.
Yeah, but you know, when you make it a pattern, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because I messaged somebody about this earlier and I said, so what do you think? Do you think men should cry or not? And she said, oh no, I think it's cute. It's nice to show a bit of emotion and stuff. And then I went back and I said, yeah, well, I'd be crying as well. I mean, imagine all the money you've spent, you know, like, and you've basically just thrown your life away. Of course you're going to be crying. And she came back and she sort of said, lol, something. And then she said, actually, what I would like would be to see not him fully crying, but his eyes glossed over a little bit, like he might be crying, but do you know what I mean?
Kind of cute.
And then it's that nuance, isn't it? You know. So.
Yeah, but the idea is that when the guys are weeping, you're kind of like,
I mean,
like a little but when they're full on.
It seems a little bit.
Performative almost.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It seems I think you know. There are certain things, death of a parent, whatever. There are certain things. Obviously, a man's gonna have those moments in private. But I mean, getting married, I don't know. It's not because you wouldn't have feelings about it, but is it something to cry about? I'm not sure.
I saw someone cry at their third wedding, and I'm like, "Why are you crying? This is the third time around." I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm like, I mean,
by now it's just like a formality, isn't it? Really? It's like, all right, where do I sign the thing? Okay, fine, let's go and have the party. You know. There's
another bride that weighed in too. So. This one?
Yeah, the home math one, I think is. Okay. Yeah, this one is.
Yeah.
I'm about to walk down the aisle. If he's crying, there's a chance I get the ick. But if he's not crying, I'm gonna be like, why aren't you crying? It's the happiest day of your life.
It's not uncommon for a woman to experience competing icks. In economics, we call this a conflict. A conflict occurs when you demonstrate that you are affected by a situation, but also you are icky if you do not do something to demonstrate that you are affected by the same situation. In this case, a man and a woman are to be wed, and if he does not cry, then that is not strong enough of a display of emotion, and if he does cry, then that is too sensitive to the very same emotion. This man has worked his entire life to have something to offer this woman for her hand in marriage, and there are only two choices, and both of them are icks. There you go. In the case of such a conflict, the woman should be considered unsalvageable as long as both of the icks are degree 4 or worse. For example, if you take camping and you cannot build your tent, but you also do not want to sleep outside because of icky bugs, it's okay for her to not like that. But in this case, I would place crying and not crying as being here and here. Unsalvageable. Do not marry.
Well.
So first off, I'd say that guy, Homath, I think is a genius. He's got some really funny videos, and that's a great break. But it's like the way she shot that video at the beginning. I think she was obviously. It seemed like she was joking a little bit, but it is a true thing, isn't it? It kind of is. It is highlighting a real thing about female nature, which is that on the one hand, you know, and I can think of other examples of this as well. On the one hand, if he does do something, that's bad because that's not masculine. But then if he doesn't do it, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, and it does feel a lot of the time men can't win. And this bigger issue of icks in general, you know, these big long lists of icks that we get online and everything. You know, I think it's just part of the whole dating culture that we have, where people, women in particular, have so much choice that it's like he does one little thing wrong. You know, like somebody was telling me about this girl who dated this guy a few times, and then he couldn't use the correct cutlery or something at dinner, and she got the ick and then got rid of him. You know, stuff like that.
Huh? For not cutting something right?
No, not using the correct knife and fork in the restaurant or something like that, you know.
I don't think I could do it right.
Well,
there's multiple forks.
yeah,
Don't
you know,
they just
this
give
is
you
why
the one for the plate?
No,
Oh.
this is when you do your etiquette course.
Oh,
You know,
okay,
when you've
no,
got the
yeah.
different, you know.
No, I totally know.
Yeah, but you know, so something as simple as that, and then he gets disqualified for that. It's just like there's too much choice out there.
So what are male icks? Like,
We don't have any. Well,
Like, what
159,000 text messages is a male ick.
the males have no icks. Yeah, what's the most annoying thing that women do?
Do men have icks? I don't think men have icks in the same way that women do, to be honest. Is there something she could do? I think to be honest, I think men are very simple creatures. I think it comes down to, is she hot? Is she attractive? Is she into me? You know, is she pleasant to be around? I think those are the key things, really. And I think men will overlook a lot that maybe women wouldn't. You know, I do have a story though. My friend James told me when he went on a date with this woman, and they were playing the question game on the date. Like, I ask one question, and then you have to answer, and she, you know, vice versa. And her first question to him was, "Okay, what was your bottom line last year? Like, what did you make last year?" And he basically just
why would you ask? That's so rude.
I know, yeah. And so he basically just got up and like paid the bill and just walked out, and he's like, "Right, sod this." So I guess you could sort of say that was an ick because it was kind of masculine and so on the nose and so like in your face. You know what I'm saying? It's so. But I think it also depends on how many options the dude's got as well. Because if the guy's not got many options, then he's going to put up with a lot of like female rudeness and impoliteness and her being cocky and whatever, and he's just going to take it because, you know, if he's only getting one date every 3 months, then what are you going to do?
One day, wow, every 3 months.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, I know guys, you know, it's kind of crazy. I mean, some of the guys we've coached, I mean, I've coached guys, you know, decent looking, they seem to have stuff together, and they're going through these dry spells of like, you know, like 6 months and stuff,
Really?
not getting anything.
How do you get them out of it?
Well, I mean, a lot of the time, it's not what people necessarily think. It's not because of their looks or their, you know, money and those external things so much. A lot of the time, it's more to do with the fact that they're not good conversationally. They're not able to like bring out emotion in her. They're not able to create desire in her. You know what I'm saying? It's very flat. It's very boring. It's very logical. And the girls just sit there like, yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. You know, they're not, you know.
So how would you create emotion? So we're talking now. Get my emotions.
Like demo. No, they need to lean into that bad boy energy a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You know how you know how women are always banging on about like, oh, I like the bad boy. I like you know, like, so I think a lot of guys will come across, particularly people who are like, say their work is a bit more logical, or they work in coding or computing or data, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then it's very much like, okay, so how do I snap out of that? How do I become this guy who's a little bit more edgy? He's got a little bit more sort of he's not this predictable, super boring kind of dude. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we try to teach people. But it's not necessarily like an easy process. It's about sort of, firstly, it's about understanding the dynamics. That's the first thing. Because a lot of guys don't even understand the dynamic. They think, oh, going on a date with a woman is just like a networking event, or it's just like an interviewing for a job. So the first thing to understand is it's fundamentally different, because women operate on emotion, not on logic. And then the next thing is like, right, okay, so how can I become a bit more of that kind of guy who's...
So how would you do that off the bat?
What do you mean?
Like how would you get the emotions spiking in the beginning?
You got to be flirtatious. You got to bring some kind of sexualized element. I'm not in a crude way, but you've got there's got to be that undertone to it. You know, so throwing in a bit of flirtiness. You know, bringing in the odd line here and there. What I would often do is like derail the conversation. So often women will talk about like boring shit for a long period of time. You know, she'll start talking about a job or something like that, and you want to suddenly turn it around and go, oh, you look great in that dress, or just something, or make some slightly mildly like sexualized comment or something to remind her, to bring it back to the fact that this is man to woman. This isn't just we're not just here to have a business meeting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that makes sense. So,
and I think guys generally can be too boring. They can be too predictable. You know, she wants to feel emotions. That's the thing. The more I've studied this stuff, the more it seems to me that women are so driven by emotion, and we've got all of these competing dopamine sources, you know, like Netflix and TikTok and everything else. And it's like they need the guy to bring that energy. Certainly the younger women, certainly the women who are, I mean, certainly the women who are more sought after, you know, they've also got a lot of options. It's like, well, why is she going to pick you over this other dude over here?
yeah.
You know?
I want you to...
And just if you think about as well, if you think about some of the like famous characters in the space, in the manosphere, who've got that. If you think about someone like the Tates, or if even maybe Byron or something like that, they've got some of the external trappings of some success. They've got some wealth. They've got whatever. Decent looking, in shape, etc. So they're ticking those boxes, but there's clearly more to it than that, right?
Yeah.
It's that character thing, isn't it? It's that dominance, it's that male sort of energy that they'll bring to bear on the table. And you can imagine with people like Andrew and Tristan how even before they were as wealthy as they are now, or who they are now, they would still be getting action because of the way that they are, because of the way they come across.
Well, and it's being a girl's type too, I would think.
I think, I also no, I think that's true. I think you're never going to get every girl.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Like there are some women they say they divide into yes girls, no girls, or maybe girls. You know,
Okay.
and most of
I agree with that.
you know what I'm saying? And like probably for most of us, probably most girls, that they're probably no girls. You know, you're just not her type. She's just not going to be into you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not really anything you can do about that. Then sometimes you get yes girls who they just like how you look, they like how you come across, they like your vibe, they're into it. You can still fuck up with those girls though. So you need to. Then the game becomes not messing up.
Have you ever had a really big fuck up where you thought a girl was a sure thing and then?
I mean, in the past, yeah. I mean, obviously never now. But I'll tell you in a second. But then obviously you've just got that sector in the middle of the maybe girls who are like, yeah, he's okay. You know, he could be all right, but I'm not sure yet. And those are the ones you need to kind of, finesse a little bit. But I mean, I remember one time, and this is where the conversation skills come in, and this is where the, being able to lead the, and bring that energy to the party really comes in. I went to a party once, and this girl, as soon as I walked in the room, I see this girl, she kind of looked at me, and you can, sometimes you can just tell somebody looks at you, you look at them, you could just tell I could tell there was some kind of interest there, right? And people will, be oh, he's capping or whatever, but I could just tell there was like a, there's a bit of vibe. So I go over, and we start talking, blah, blah, blah. We get seated next to each other at the table. Now, for whatever reason, on that particular day, my energy was low. I was tired. My Riz, the Riz wasn't there. It wasn't flowing. And I was sort of trying to talk to her, and it was really fucking flat. And I remember I just said something lame to her, like, oh, so, what do you do? So what do you do for work? Right. And she looks at me and she said, you want to talk to me about my job? And she had this like real look of disappointment in her eyes, And I had this sinking feeling of like, oh fuck, I've dropped the ball here. You know what I mean? And then, sure enough, the rest of the dinner passed on, and we kind of just went and talked to other people, and and it all kind of fizzled out. And that's a great example for me of something where, really, at the beginning, it should have been on, and because of the way that I came across, because the way I was in that interaction, I fucked it up, and she lost interest, and that does happen with guys a lot. I think this is why you'll get guys who'll be like, yeah, I keep going on these dates, and then these girls ghost me afterwards, or they they flake, or they send me the classic message, oh, I wasn't feeling the chemistry or whatever. You know what I mean?
Is that a classic message?
Well, for a lot of guys, yeah. So sometimes it can be yours to lose, if you know what I mean. You can. She can have that initial attraction, but then you can fuck it up because of the way you come across. And this is where all the guys who think that it's just about looks. They're naive to this, really, because they think, oh well, if the dude is good looking, and yeah, sure. I mean, in some situations she's feeling horny, he's super hot, whatever. She's just going to go there. But there's also
It's definitely not all about looks.
It's got to be combined. You can definitely lose a sure thing if you don't come across in the right way. I think that's the important thing.